All right, welcome back to the final half hour of Green Rush Live, our regular Friday afternoon business of cannabis talk show on Pro Cannabis Media. I'm Jimmy Young, the host of Green Rush Live and the founder of Pro Cannabis Media and PCM TV. And a reminder to please like, share, and subscribe to our content. We're very proud of the success that we've had, and everybody who gets involved with this show seems to, for whatever reason, want to come back on. And we're so lucky to have David Rabinovitz with us every week. Curt Dalton steps in, and now we've got a legend in the industry. Terry Booth is with us. Terry, thank you so much for joining us here on Friday afternoon.
Hey, Jimmy, thanks for having me. I look forward to our chit chat here.
Yeah, and I'm actually gonna let my two business guys kind of dictate the conversation here. First of all, tell us a little bit about your story, because it started. You were the co-founder of Aurora Brands up in Canada first, correct? And now you're running a company called Audacious Brands. So that's a little bit of a journey in the corporate world of cannabis. Can you walk us through your story a little bit?
Sure, that's a great. A little bit. I could talk to you for 4 hours on that particular question, but I'll try and cut it short. Whatever it was, 10 years ago, my partner in Superior Safety Codes, is a regulatory company in Alberta, came into my office and he was talking to me about medical cannabis, and I thought he was bullshitting. I was actually trying to get my bets done with my bookie, and I had a tea time. And he said, no, I'm serious. I want to talk to you about this potential opportunity in the medical space in Canada. And Canada at that time was 4 patients per grow. Okay, we had a medical system, but you only were allowed 4 patients. They were commercializing that industry so that you could have an unlimited number of patients. I actually thought he was full of it. I thought he was joking, but he pushed me and he said, hey man, let's check this guy out. And it was his brother-in-law, Dale Lesack. So Steve Dobler has been my partner for over 30, 40 years. How many years now? 35 years. And Dale Lesack was his brother-in-law. And I journeyed down to Calgary, Alberta, north of Calgary, and went into this little barn grow who had been supplying cannabis for 4 patients. But they had a plan to go bigger, and they didn't have the infrastructure in place or the acumen in place, if you will, to really make a launch of it. And I was impressed. It looked like great weed. I know my cannabis, and away we went. So I put away the sticks, the golf clubs, and I stopped betting online and focused on, let's go figure out what's going on in this cannabis space. I call it a pilgrimage. Maybe that's a little bit cocky, but it was. I went down the west coast of United States and British Columbia into the interior, BC, Kelowna. I remember being in an underground grow. That, when I say underground, it was literally underground. It was like 3 sea cans that were underground. You had to walk down these steep stairs. I remember they opened the door and they poof with the lights. I took out my phone to take a picture, and some very large dude said, "No pictures." He didn't say it like that. He F-bombed me as well. But so I thought at that time, well, maybe I'm going a little bit too deep into looking into the space. But the bottom line is, where I think it turned on a trigger with me is visiting dispensaries in Vancouver, in California, in Oregon, and seeing the people that were buying cannabis, and they're buying it for medical purposes. And most of those people were people my age or older. Older people. They're doing it for their ailments. And in Canada, we cover the cost of drugs, but not for cannabis. So what are they doing here? Right. Why would they be spending this money on weed? My experience with weed before then was to get high, to have some fun. And so then I started looking into the medical aspects of this, whether they had pain, sleep, anxiety, PTS, whatever it might be. And I really got a firm knowledge that, hey man, we got to do this. So that was about 3 months. I came back and said, Steve, we have to invest. And Dobler and I put a lot of our own money into getting Aurora going. And Aurora Cannabis, amazing company, still is, whatever, maybe they're having some struggles right now. I've not been there for, effectively 2 years, but we spoke to, 25 health ministers around the globe into having a medical cannabis system. Pretty proud of it. Yeah, it's cool. And then we had this lady who stood up in New York at the UN convention. Okay. And she told the world that Canada is legalizing cannabis federally. Okay. Shida. what was the last name? Potter? It's like something with pot, but anyway, Phil Pot, Phil Pot. She stood up in New York and told the world on 420, on April 20th, that Canada is legalizing federally cannabis. So, wow, we didn't expect that when we entered the medical space. So then we started preparing at Aurora to get ready for adult usage. And, it's a good system up in Canada, but it's restricted. And our entry into America, not Aurora's, but my entry into America with Audacious and with Australis is more exciting. And I mean that. It's more exciting because of the population base, because of the ability to brand. And where Audacious was born, or Australis was born, Australis, by the way, is the Southern Hemisphere Aurora. So if you're south of the equator, they call the Aurora Borealis, north of the equator, Aurora. South, they call it Australis. That's where the name came from. So we thought, well, south of 59th parallel, USA,
Right.
Australis. Yeah. So it's a tough name. That's why we're rebranding this thing. But anyway, they were born. That company was born for our entry into America while we traded on the CSE. And when we graduated to the TSE and to the NYSE, it was no touch the plant, the rules, right? So we had to divest of our interest in Australis, and we spun it out. We spun it out into its own pubco, listed on the CSE, had a significant number of shareholders. It still does, and appointed a new board. We actually didn't even appoint a new board. We used an outside firm to get the board and to get the management team, and the company didn't execute like we had thought they would. Not all their fault whatsoever. Regulatory requirements in the States, it's still the wild, wild west in America. There's 50 countries, if you will. Whatever. It didn't execute as we thought they would at Aurora. But then when my time was up at Aurora, I had an opportunity with Australis, and that came through a dissident battle. So the shareholders of Australis said, you know what? We don't like what you're up to. We want to remove the board and remove the management team. Okay, crazy stuff. In fact, these dissident battles, I've been involved in them before. You see all the crap press releases that go back and forth between each other, and it's really unfortunate. Maybe a reflection of society, but the recommendation from these companies, these proxy firms, are to be mean to each other, if you will. I could use expletives, but I won't. It just was something that
you can. We're streaming. Go ahead.
No, yeah, sure.
Am I allowed to swear?
Yes, you are. Bruce does a lot. Believe me.
Bruce, that's right. Don't hold back, because you're following Bruce Linton, and he doesn't ever.
Okay, Bruce. I'm trying to control my potty mouth, but hell, and shit, you shit on each other in these proxy battles, and you're not even the ones writing the press release. It's just the proxy firms. So it seems really bitter in the public space of what you're saying about each other. We're saying shit about Scott. They're saying shit about me. You're in that battle, and we won. We kicked their asses. Right? It was 60 million shares to 20, and of the 20, 10 were Scott's. And Scott's still a very good friend of mine, and he's a great businessman. But it was time. They were trying to flip the company to a fintech. It's a cannabis company. We have a plan in place to move it forward. And part of the deal for getting Australis going again was to step in as CEO. Okay. And that was with respect to the acquisition of Alps, Aurora Larson Projects at the time. And Alps was the company that was responsible for building Aurora Sky, Aurora Denmark, Aurora Medicine Hat, looking after the 9 or 10 facilities in Canada. They know their shit for sure. They know their cannabis. They also know how to grow. Been in the greenhouse business for 30 years. Thomas Larson, he's one of the best in the world, in my opinion. Okay, so we move forward with Australis. We won the vote, the dissident vote. I joined the company as CEO in March 9th of this year, and we started to execute. And we've done a lot of deals, man, that are good deals. They're accretive deals. It's not an Aurora 2.0. I get that question a lot. Are you going to do what you did at Aurora? No, I don't want 3,500 employees ever again. But I do want to build a brand in America. It's an amazing marketplace, America compared to Canada. You have to take your hat off to the U.S. guys that have slugged it out with tough regulations. We call it 50 countries, 50 states, with respect to cannabis. And I don't know, what have we done since I joined? And it's not me, it's this other C-suite we put together. Leah Bailey, John Paul, Duke Fu. All three of those C-suites are experienced cannabis executives. And then you tack on the management team that we've been able to attract, and don't think a lot of them weren't from Aurora. Okay, some great people that I would have never, ever laid off at Aurora. Some of the people would have been my last 10, right? But we brought them on board, and away we go. So here we are in March, and we think, okay, what are we going to do? We have some plans. We acquired Alps, and Alps is a unique model for entry into the MSO world. If you think about it, some of the difficulty with being an MSO is just the licensing alone. So Alps are building these facilities, and Thomas signs a contract, Thomas Larson, Alps, and then I poke my big nose in. Say, hey man, would you assign us some of your canopy? Can we get 10% of your canopy? We'll pay you for the product, but cost plus 10, 5, just to stabilize the pricing of the product. And I didn't know that would work, Jimmy. I didn't know. But we tried it, and it's working. And it's working because, number one, the company that we're doing this work for and building their facility is happy to have a high level of knowledge on the grow, and they're also able to tell their bank they've already got 10% of their product sold.
Right.
Okay, because it's contractual. So and then we'll white label back and forth with them. And the greatest example I could give, and I'm jumping way forward here, but I'll go to Bell, Florida, the deal we have in Massachusetts, because it's a good example of what we're up to, what our strategy is. These guys approached us because they thought, we were a capital company where we invest in companies. That's really what Australis somewhat became, sort of a fintech. Giving people money, but not having that 51%, not having that top line revenue. And we said, no, we don't do that anymore. Okay, I'm at the helm now. And they said, and I said, but what are you guys doing? Well, we're building a facility in Massachusetts. We have a social equity license of 110,000 square feet of canopy. We have a delivery license. We have a manufacturing license. We're all set to go in mass, but we're looking for cash. Well, I can't give you cash, but can we build you the facility? So enter Thomas and Joel. I get them on a call. It was about 2.5 hours long. And at first they were like, really? We know how to grow weed. They managed about 1 million square feet of canopy in California before they entered Mass. And they're from Mass, but they're going back to Massachusetts. And at the end of that call, 100% convinced that they needed the talent, the skill set that Alps brings. Okay. I got a little bit of talent myself with respect to the product, the weed. I know in and out of cannabis, not as well as Thomas and Joel do. So these guys were cool. They said, yeah, we got to do this. So next thing you know, now we're building a facility in Massachusetts, and we have 10% of the canopy assigned, actually 12.5. We're going to do a deal on manufacturing with them. And I think it's been announced, hopefully. Otherwise, I just
or just did.
Thanks.
Breaking news. Hold up. Breaking news.
I'm in trouble now. My CFO is going to call me right after this interview. But it's just a possibility. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Anyhow, it just showed you that the industry, this Kumbaya approach, the community, the culture, and our knowledge that we bring down from Canada. We're not smarter with respect to the grow. We've just been doing it longer. And don't think we didn't run into problems in Canada with the grow. These systemic diseases that you get when you bump up your square footage are prevalent, and anybody can talk about that. But the people know how to fix it. We do. Okay, the people at Alps, not necessarily me, but the people at Alps that are part of our deal. The other deal we did, and I know I'm blabbing on, but I want to sort of get it all in. Since I've been here, is GT. So Green Therapeutics is another company that we acquired that was pending when we walked into this dissident battle. So it was actually litigious. Okay, they didn't do this, we didn't do that. Everybody's suing each other. I don't like litigation. I'll do anything to avoid lawyer bills. Okay, but it was a great deal for Australis at the time, and it's an audacious deal. because we bring Dr. Duke Fu. He's a scientist. His brands are amazing. He has 55% penetration in Nevada. So now we have some product. Boom, boom. We got Alps. We can build your facilities. We're going to get more product. And boom, we're doing okay in Nevada on the sales side. Then what? We can't just stick in Nevada. So since March 9th, we've entered Oklahoma, Missouri, Massachusetts, California.
Wow.
I'm paying lobbyists in New York. Okay. And the lobbyist work really helped us in New Jersey. I don't know if you know the whole story in Jersey.
Yeah.
But initially they weren't going to have vertical integration. They weren't going to give it to the medical guys that are already there, which sucks. Unfair. It's not America. And we invoked some change. And now the regulations in New Jersey are going to allow for that vertical integration. So if you think about it, you got Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. That's 80 million people, man.
I know.
That's
a few more than Canada, right? It's a few more than Canada.
And they're not restrictive on the brand side.
Right.
Like Canada, you go buy a package of joints or an ounce of weed, and Joe's packaging looks the same as Jimmy's and Fred's and Larry's, right? It's white and it's red. It has all these warnings on it. It's like scary, right? The booze companies in Canada are doing a better job at getting away with that, and hopefully Canada changes, but it's not that big of a population, and certainly all of us, including Bruce, and Vic and Irwin, we all overestimated this demand that we would see in the adult usage market. But I'm going to shut up right away here. I'll say this: the cannabis space is as small as it's ever going to be today.
Right. Ooh, I like that. Curt, I know you're chomping at the bit. David, I'm sure you've got a few questions as well about the history of what Terry brings to the market and to the United States. You want to go first, Curt?
Yeah. So to the best of my knowledge, Terry, you never self-dealt. What do you think of the way Afria self-dealt?
BS, whatever. You mean before Irwin or after Irwin?
Before.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that got corrected, right?
Yeah.
I like Vic. I don't know the particulars of the deal, but what happened with Afria is they ended up all getting accident. Maybe they lined their pockets. That's not what I'm about. It's not what I've ever been about. And you can check my history. It's unfortunate. It's going to happen in any nascent industry, especially publicly traded. Then you add the cannabis factor to it. Like, come on. It was unfortunate. Even worse though, there were other companies that did things that were more offside. Okay. We can talk about it. It's in the public markets. Organogram. I call it Organoscam. What the hell were they doing? Right? They're an organic company and yet they were using pesticides. Aurora caught them doing that because we bought some of their weed and we sold it. We sold more weed than they did of their weed. And then it got tested and had pesticides. Are you kidding? Okay, that's fixed now. Don't get me wrong. They changed the top shelf as well. What was the company that did the secret curtains in Canada? Right, they're growing weed behind curtains. A lot of things went on, but I tell you what, the system that they put in place in Canada corrected those problems by virtue of finding them out.
Do you think, David's big on this, and I'll pass it to him. Does Canada have a future as an exporter based on cost? Because we've talked about low-cost providers, Mexico, South America. When this thing gets rolling, it's going to go to low electricity costs, low water costs, low labor costs. Where does Canada fit into that equation in, I don't know, let's say 3 years?
Sure. And I hope you're referring to the medical cannabis market.
Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Okay? Yeah. In the medical cannabis market, 100%, Canada has an amazing opportunity. So does America. It depends how you grow it. When we build these massive greenhouses, say 1 million square feet, our cost per gram is way below 50 cents. Okay. And it's high quality cannabis. And you really have to always go back to the amount of milligrams of THC and cannabidiol and other cannabinoids that you're producing relative to what the medical market needs. And consistency of grow is very, very important. So what you're talking about, Curt, is I think an equatorial play. Okay. We looked at equatorial plays, and yes, you can grow it cheaper outside in hoop houses on the equator. Yeah, you have your 12-12, but you still run the risk of weather, which you don't in a greenhouse. You're on a risk of disease. which you shouldn't have in an environmentally controlled greenhouse. And I almost want to jump to what Alps is doing in the veggie space with the sustainable grow, because we're growing vegetables cheaper than you can grow in Mexico in sustainable grows. So, it is, it's all about technology. And I go back to what I was first saying about the Netherlands. You have this little tiny country that is responsible for 80 or maybe 70% of the vegetables in all of Europe, 600 million people. How'd they do that? They didn't do it outdoor. They're growing indoor.
Yeah.
And they're growing in high-tech greenhouses, man. And they're growing at high yield and high quality. If you take, and think about this for a second, in Alaska, you grow some carrots. And I want to go back to cannabis, but you grow a carrot and you grow it in Mexico and you drive it to Alaska. By the time it gets to Alaska, you can whip a horse with it, like a bendy carrot, right? If you're growing those carrots in Alaska, the environmental footprint is nil. There's not a truck driving it from Mexico to Alaska, right? Diesel fuel, bunch of carrots, right? I'm not a big environmental dude. I believe in it, but the sustainable grow affects cannabis as well. Indoor grow is higher quality. We all know that. And at the end of the day, if it's a connoisseur of cannabis, good luck with your hoop house. You're not going to get your high quality bud on that. Are derivatives the answer grown in hoop houses? Yeah, for sure. If your hoop house growing, then use that for your extraction and your gummies and your pens. But people eventually will come around to the taste, and they have, right? If you look at the market, and a good example would be Cali and British Columbia. What's selling? Where do we make our money? And how do we excite, ignite, and delight our customers? How do we do that? By having high quality flower, which turns into high quality derivatives eventually. Certainly, the equatorial grow has an argument, but for export, man, come on, these countries are tough. Like Germany standards on grow, they're not taking hoop house grow. There's no way. You have to be GMP compliant. Good manufacturing practices. You have to be GACP compliant, good agricultural cultivation practices, and very difficult for you to do that on the equator. And don't think we didn't look at it, back in the day at Aurora and still are even at Audacious. But our focus right now is on this amazing American market that is about to pop.
David, I know you haven't had a chance. I want David to ask a question because he's a guy who loves to look at the finances. And one of the things we learned on this show, and you're talking about the equator, there's a country called Colombia that's down there that claims that they can grow 5 cents per gram cannabis in perfect outdoor conditions. What's the impact of that moving forward down the road on the rest of the market that's paying 50 cents up to $1 in North America?
Yeah, I don't know.
David, you can still ask a question. We're going to go long. Go ahead, Terry.
Do you want to grow cannabis in Colombia?
No. Well, I mean, do I? No. Do I? Have I used it? I'll admit.
In the back of the Chevy truck.
Yeah.
In Colombia growing cannabis. I mean, we had deals in Colombia, and I'm not going to get into it, but it's at 5 cents a gram. Good luck. Not GACP, not GMP compliant pot. That's we can grow 5 cents a gram pot in California, man. No problem.
Right.
And it's post. No
And
problem.
they do.
Right. But the indoor grow supports a market that is out there. And if you're going to build a brand, you don't want to just be hoop housing your weed, for sure. Right. I think you need a combination of both, Jimmy. I think that for your derivative market, let's look at the hoop house, maybe the equator. Do you think that Colombia is going to import pot into the United States ever?
Well, they certainly did in the 70s and 80s. I can tell you that.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's called brickweed.
There's a little thing called duty.
Yeah, I know.
And taxes and the countries that protect themselves, like Canada and America, they have a little thing called duties. If you're importing shit into our country, we're going to hit you with a duty, and that'll ramp up your cost basis for sure.
David, I know you've got a question, and I know what you're chomping at the bit to ask. So go ahead.
What's my okay? Which
about interstate commerce? Come on, this is teed up for you. Go ahead.
So we become enthralled with a paper that was published back in July by a Vanderbilt law professor who maintains that interstate commerce in the US right now can't be stopped by the states. And he's got some very compelling arguments. Obviously, that doesn't go to international, but at the point where you said you got facilities in lots of states, how many of those states do you have cultivation facilities?
We have cultivation. Well, cultivation plant are operating. Operating is Nevada and Cali.
Okay. And what kind of facilities do you have in Massachusetts?
I love this question because it's a great lead-in for me. It's almost like you guys planned it, right, for me, because it's great. I have a great answer for you. In Massachusetts, the facility is under construction now. They won a license. It's social equity license from Bellfleur, 110,000 square feet canopy. That includes 4 retail. It includes delivery, which is only allowed in social equity, and it includes manufacturing. So all 4 verticals. Massachusetts is a great state for regs, and that's my background is regulations. And I don't think we haven't done our work in figuring out which states we should be in. So that facility is under construction. It's already a few million bucks into it. It's a $35 million project, beautiful facility, and that social equity license were granted the largest license that you can get in Massachusetts, David. But to answer your question with this cross-state stuff and commerce, if you're going to build a brand, you should be able to transfer your cultivars in a consistent manner, and that's not allowed right now. I can't take my mums from Cali and throw them in Nevada, right? Not allowed. But we have this little deal, and that's why I love the question, with a group out of Colorado called 3 Rivers. And they do something called plant tissue culture and micropropagation. And my time at Aurora, we spend millions of dollars on PTC and micropropagation of plant tissue culture, and we didn't quite get it. Maybe they have now. I've not been there for 2 years, but these cats in Colorado have nailed it on micropropagation. So not only did they clean up the genetics, but it's legal to transport cannabis in agar solution, right? It's like a petri dish.
Yep.
Away we go. Right? And away we go with our mums. So we're going to bring our cultivars and our cannabis into these states legally, totally legal, and have the consistency of strain. So I don't think you're talking about that with cross-state commerce. And if this individual, I'd love you to send me that, what this guy's working on with actually having the ability to cross state lines with the product, because that's where it's going, right? There's 35 states where you can sit on your step and smoke a joint, correct?
Right.
No problem.
36, I think.
36, perfect. And there'll be 39 the next time we speak, maybe.
Right.
And you've got Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court saying this is silly.
Right.
What are we doing, right? And he's conservative. So the opportunity is immense. Are they going to legalize in America sooner rather than later? No. But I think we're past where we were at the Cole memo stage. Remember the Cole memo?
Oh, God. You want David to recite it? He's asking James Cole to come on the show in a couple of weeks. We're doing this interstate commerce show.
Cool. That's cool. I'll watch that for sure.
You'll want to, Terry, you'll want to watch the show in 2 weeks. See, we have an unbelievable roster of guests.
Yep.
We're taking a deep dive into this interstate thing. But from your perspective, if in fact you can transport marijuana interstate in the US, what does that do to your indoor grow facilities if everybody from the East Coast gets onto JetBlue, flies out to the Emerald Triangle, and they're buying weed out there and shipping it back east?
Mm-hmm. The Emerald Triangle is to come on Northern Cali because there's 2 Emerald Triangles. Yes. Cool. We'll have weed there ready for them to sell. You know, we're gonna grow cannabis wherever we can. The crazy thing about the East Coast is they don't have a bunch of gray grow. They never have, right? They've always brought the weed in from Cali and Oregon and British Columbia.
Right.
So is that going to continue? No, they're going to build big facilities on the East Coast that to grow inexpensive, high quality cannabis. And that'll be a state requirement as to where you get your weed from. Of course, you might be able to import it, but they're going to duty it. Right.
They've got a lot of problems on that. Under the U.S. Constitution and the Commerce Clause, the states can't just, like there was a presentation at Benzinga, I believe this morning, where the speaker said, well, I think the states will just restrict interstate commerce. They don't, according to Mikos's paper, the states don't have that power or authority. The the Commerce Clause of the U.S. Constitution will usurp that.
Yeah, and you're talking about stuff. It actually goes back as far as the British North American Act, right? My house, my kingdom, for states. And you remember California was actually threatened to leave the Union of the United States, but they didn't get their way around cannabis. So I get the passion, I get the thought, and I get the idea, but how far are we away? I don't want to even focus on that right now, man. There's just so many opportunities in the states themselves where you need to build your brand. Certainly, 100%. If we're able to bring in our cannabis from Cali or from other states, then you're going to see some mass production, right? And that mass production will be done in states or hoop houses or the equator to bring in cannabis. You have to be nimble and be ready for that. But as it sits right now, my opinion on America with respect to legislation, with the MORE Act and the SAFE Act and this taxation thing, again, take my hat off that people are still making money here in America. But I think those things happen first. Do you think, is it your opinion, Dave, that it's going to be legalized before those types of acts pass? Like you can't take a credit card?
Here's my opinion. Having read Mikos's paper over several weeks and gone back and forth, I think he could be onto something, and I think that, and I'm going to won't let the cat totally out of the bag. But if he's correct, I think people could be transporting weed across state lines really, really soon.
And
it may only be for the medical markets, right? Because the way our regulatory structure is at the federal level, if you've got somebody who is a licensed grower in California and they're testing it at a level that Massachusetts requires, and somebody is a licensed medical marijuana operator in Massachusetts, and they import it they put it on a plane in California and bring it over here. When that plane lands, the DEA and the FBI can all be standing around, but they can't do anything because it's medical marijuana. And as long as it's in compliance with state regulations, under Aurora Barker, they can't expend any resources to go after those kinds of activities. And I think all it takes is somebody to sue in a local state that the state can't restrict my ability to import it as long as it meets the testing requirements.
I love everything you said, and I believe in everything you said. It's a matter of time before that occurs. And I think you're seeing many things happen federally. I didn't get to quite answer the full question on legalization in the States. I do think medical will be allowed in the States. I think that they'll leave it at the state level, medical cannabis. But to take it off the CDSA, there's a process there. And that requires an application to the UN, just like Canada did. And you have to give them 12 months notice. Yep. And you have to address three things. You have to address cannabis getting into the hands of the youth, cannabis being safe, right? And cannabis being grown by audited federally facilities. So that's a ways away no matter what. There's no winds of change in that regard. But to move cannabis across state lines, I agree with you. That'd be cool. I don't know what it would take. You need to be on that, but it's not like California can grow weed at a lower cost than Massachusetts. They can't, right? You know how much the taxation system is in California for the water and whatnot on cannabis? And California is one of the toughest states to navigate towards profitability. And maybe you're just using that for an example. Maybe New Mexico might be a better example, or some of the other southern states, because of the summer is what you're saying. You know, they have longer summers. You're only turning 2 crops in Cali anyway. And I'd love to show you the numbers that we were able to put together with respect to indoor grow. You know, old school was, when you talk about greenhouses, back in the day, we considered a greenhouse an outdoor grow, okay? It wasn't until I went to Netherlands, I said, this is not an outdoor grow. This is an indoor grow. The number of lights in a greenhouse that's built by Alps is equivalent to the number of lights that you have on an indoor grow. When you do the math on the yield that you're able to do with LED and high pressure sodium and halide and environmental controls and nutrient delivery systems, and this is like high-end stuff, guys. It's like, you know, automation that you can't do it in a hoop house. Your price per gram comes down. And I'd love you guys to have a chat with one of our guys, Joel Fuzat, with respect to this. He's from the Emerald Triangle. Okay. He made his way up the West Coast, Oregon. And I met him on an airplane, believe it or not. And I was reading the Herbal Pharmacopoeia that's written by a group in California about cannabis. And he was like 2 seats over, and I tell the story off, and he says, "Hey dude, why are you reading about cannabis?" And we got in this conversation, and it was only a 1-hour flight, Edmonton to Vancouver. I was chasing this young American around the airport in Vancouver with my tie all crooked from being in raise money interviews to give him my card. I had to hire him. I had to hire this dude because he knew what we're talking about on the grow. And Aurora was in its very early days, and we hadn't designed our facility. And he took the job. And Joel is still now he's a senior guy with Alps, and he knows his cannabis inside out, and he can talk to you in like off the cuff on the cost per gram stuff. And I'd love for you guys to talk to him.
Well, David loves his numbers. He never gets enough numbers to look at. So getting those together, but I'm not going to record that. Okay. Let them just talk about their numbers by themselves in a small room somewhere. Okay.
I think David, because of your knowledge and your passion about what you're looking into here, with respect to state and who's got the least cost per gram, you need to talk to a dude like Joel. He'll talk to you about this what we have going on at Alps.
Well, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes. So when we do, we'll keep you after, and I'm going to get that contact information. Curt, you have any last questions for Terry?
No, I mean, I know we're a little over, and I know I'll probably see you in Vegas and Bruce as well. So I appreciate all your time. It's just fascinating when you get a guest on that can, give a lot of knowledge, whether it's history and what you're doing now. It was awesome. Thank you for everything and coming on for that long.
Yeah.
No, man. Thanks for having me. I love what we're doing. I love the business of cannabis, and I love business. And I'm really looking forward to being able to do this like we're doing already in America. The opportunity is immense. This stock is undervalued, and I intend to excite, ignite, and delight our shareholders and our customers.
Great.
There you go. Well, you've done that on this show to our audience, and we appreciate that. So for Terry Booth, David Rabinovitz, Curt Dalton, Dan French, who directs this, Isabel Turner, who's our production coordinator, I thank you all. We did go a little bit long today, but Terry, it's because your story is so compelling, and we look forward to seeing you in Vegas at MJBiz Con. So for everybody here at Pro Cannabis Media, I'm Jimmy Young. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. We'll see you next week in Vegas. PCM TV is supported by Salient Systems, a world leader in video management security, and by Revolutionary Clinics, a medical dispensary where the patient comes first, and by Accounting Buds, your #1 CPA specialist for the cannabis industry. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
Difference is building a solution for that individual, not just a custom, here's a box, here's a video, here's how you make your VMS. We custom design and custom build every situation for exactly what the customer needs. And we keep the costs low. We have multiple tiers, as far as what you're looking at on the cost side of things. If you want a one-time, where you just pay one initial cost, we have that. If you want to maintain your system and have the highest protection and highest capabilities and highest upgrades at all times, we have different plans for you. But we scale it so it's scalable and affordable 100%. Pro Cannabis Media programming is available live and on demand on our Facebook page at Pro Canna Media, on Instagram at Pro Cannabis Media,
on LinkedIn, also at Pro Cannabis Media, on YouTube and YouTube Live on Pro Cannabis Media, Twitter at Pro Canna Media, and on twitch.tv/Pro Cannabis Media. So like, share, and subscribe to all of our content, newsletters, and shows live or on demand.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.